On today's Soundiron session, we're going to be breaking down a track inspired by the music of the video game soundtrack Bloodborne, so stick around. Hello again everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Soundiron Sessions. My name is Craig Peters. Today we are going to be looking at a demo that I wrote that was inspired by the music of the video game Bloodborne. I really love this soundtrack, I've been listening to it a lot, so I thought it would be fun to write something in that style. So before we go ahead and start deconstructing it, let's go ahead and listen to the track and then we'll start breaking it down. So the Bloodborne soundtrack is renowned for its dark and gothic atmosphere and often leaning heavily into orchestral, choral, and dissonant elements to match the game's eerie, unsettling world. So for this, I'm using some of our orchestral elements. I'm using some new libraries that we've come out with fairly recently. So we have our Hyperion strings ensemble, which is all the strings that you see here. I'm also using a little bit of our solo violins. And then we have some Hyperion brass, as well as a little bit of Symphony series brass that we did with native instruments. I'm also using our Requiem Choir for some marcatos, and some of our Apocalypse Percussion ensemble for the drums. And then I'm also using a little bit of solo vocals that we recently came out with Traveler's Serenade, and our Grand El Campanil piano. So let's first dive in and check out these strings, because this is how I started the track. So here we have these clusters that I use, and these are from Hyperion Strings Ensemble. We got a bunch of really cool aleatoric stuff in there. So let's listen to just this. I wanted the track to start off with this very tense and very just dark sort of intro, to where almost like if you were about to get into a boss battle and this whole thing was kind of building up and sort of like a stinger coming into the track. So I kind of thought about it like that. So let's listen to just the clusters by themselves. So very dramatic. And then I wanted to have the strings be more of the driving force as far as the rhythms go. The percussion is just kind of a steady pulse, almost like a click in a way. But I wanted it to start off with the basses and the cellos. So you can see right here, and this is all in D harmonic minor. Very cool key, very good for this type of style. So you can see we have the basses that are just doing this kind of lower driving sound. So the bass is just kind of handling the downbeats, and then the cello is a little bit more busier, doing that dun 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 dun. And then we also have some other strings, so let's check those out too. So this is all together. So you can hear that little digga-digga-din. I have it sort of playing around from the cellos to the violas and then to the violins. And then we also have this little string melody coming in. So let's play all these together. So you can see with the violins, it's just bringing in the slow, dark sounding melody just to give it that sort of dark and haunting vibe. And then I'm also using our Traveler's Serenade, and this is using the 80 BPM phrases in D, and this is using Phrygian. So since this is in harmonic minor, these phrases seem to work fairly well. So let's have a listen to the strings and the vocals. So I thought these sounded really good with the track. I wanted to bring in some female vocals just to have almost like a slightly operatic kind of sound. And then we also have some of these Requiem light marcatos down here. So we can listen to that together as well. And if you want to hear just the Requiem choir, let's hear that. This is almost just acting as just like a low men's choir in the background. More not really supposed to be up front, but just more there. And I really love this because it's just so fun to play. And it's just really fun because you can have all these different syllables changing. So that's really cool. And then we have the percussion going on down here as well. Let's listen to just the percussion. Some big drums, some cymbals, just for accenting. So we also have a new piano that we came out with recently. This is the Grand L Campanil piano. And we recorded this at the Campanil Theater. And it just has a really awesome sound to it. It's very bold. And you can hear that when I used it in this track, using it more just to kind of outline another melody, and layering in piano and orchestra is really cool. And it can just kind of give it an extra layer of bigness. So let's listen to just the piano. Piano cuts through the mix. So just really haunting kind of sound. So if we hear this in context. Some of the things I tried doing too was layering in some of these cluster sustains during this, just to add in that little bit of eeriness. Even though it's kind of melodic and fairly drivey, I wanted to bring in some little cluster sustains in there just for added tension. Very subtle, but you can hear it right here. I'm bringing in these second violin cluster sustains, so let's check that out. So at the very beginning of the track, not only do I have these cluster sustains from Hyperion Strings Ensemble, I'm also using some of these more effect type articulations from Symphony series brass. Like you can see there's this trumpets cluster loop, as well as this horns bend down. It's a little bit lower, but if we play up. And those are always really cool. And then we also have some trombone mute clusters. So let's listen to the brass and strings on the intro so you can hear all those clusters together and how they work. With that bend down. And then we have some brass bone staccatos and tubas, just little stabs, some trumpets. So you can hear this is more string driven, but the low brass is just kind of supporting those lower notes. We'll bring that horn bend down again. We're going to bring in some horns. Layering in with a violin. So for measure 26 up, this is just kind of this ending section that I wanted to have. It's utilizing some Lakeside pipe organ, as well as some phrases from the Traveler's Serenade, and then some other strings brass choirs, and a little bit of cymbals just for accents. And with this, it's just going between two chords. It's going between D minor and it's just using inversions. And I thought it sounded really cool just going back and forth between those two chords. It just has that very gothic sort of orchestral sound to it. So let's listen to just this section now. So one of the other things I'm doing with this section, and you can see a little bit of it down here, is I'm using the sine subsynth from El Campanil piano. We had this in a lot of our libraries too, but since I had this loaded, I just duplicated it and set it up to where it's just the sine layer. So if you listen to this, all this is doing is just providing that low sub. And you'll hear this a lot in scores where people will use like a sine or like a sub synth just for supporting that low end. So let's listen to just this by itself. And if you have a subwoofer, you'll be able to hear this. If not, you might need some really good headphones. So if you were to take this out, it'll sound like this. So I mean, with the cellos and the basses and these lower brass sections, it does have a lot of low end, but if you hear it without the sub bass, it definitely kind of just adds that little bit of extra. So without, and then with. So you can hear it just kind of adds that little bit of extra sub just for giving it that sort of final rounded kind of low end sound. And then I'm also using our Lakeside pipe organ. And with this, it's just doing this little kind of melody playing in the background, just kind of giving it a little bit of movement. And I think pipe organ definitely helps sort of add that kind of that toccata and fugue in D minor kind of thing, and which is honestly the song that sort of got me into classical music. When I was in middle school, I never really listened to too much classical, but when I heard toccata and fugue in D minor, it definitely led me down the road of getting into classical music. So adding this is definitely a pretty cool thing. So let's listen to just the Lakeside pipe organ by itself. And with this, I just played it in myself. So just kind of playing in this little melody on top, and I think it's a nice little addition on top of all this, because if we take this out, and then add that in. So it's very sort of like middle ground area when it comes to, you know, forefront, middle ground, background. So I didn't want it to be too up front, but you can hear it in there, and it just kind of adds like this nice little touch to sort of give it that sort of gothic vibe. And then we have the Requiem light choir down here, and I think this is what really kind of makes this section, because hearing that choir playing those chords definitely sounds really cool. So let's listen to just the choir playing this. Very big choir sound. Then let's add in that sub bass and the Lakeside pipe organ. And then the brass. Just using these decrescendo highs. And then I really like utilizing these decrescendo high articulations, because they're acting as sort of like a strong marcato, where it has this strong attack and then naturally decays. So let's check that out. Very powerful. So this is the tenor bones and the bass bones layered together. We can even bring in some tubas if we want. And I just love the sound of those layered together, and that articulation is great for this type of section. So let's go ahead and listen to it one more time all together for the end, and then we will wrap it up. One more thing I want to mention before we wrap this up is, for this track, I have a orchestral template that I use in Vienna Ensemble Pro. So you can see I have my strings, brass, choir, percussion, woodwinds, and piano and keys. So this has all of my different instruments. And then if I head back over here, you'll see that so this is using my Metagrid layout. So if I want to just show all the tracks, right now I'm only showing the tracks that are being used, but you can see I have all my first violins, solo violins, second violins with the different articulations, violas, cellos, basses. We even have some octabass in here, and the brass, choir. Right here you can see we got some woodwinds, which are not really being used too much in this track. I don't even think I'm using any woodwinds at all. And then we have our percussion and some choirs. So if you guys want to see a full breakdown of setting this up, or even building your own template, let me know in the comments and we can make that video happen. All right, so that about wraps up the Soundiron session. This was a really fun track to write. And if you want to learn about any of the libraries that I used in this video, make sure to head over to soundiron.com. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. A lot of you are watching and you haven't subscribed, so please do. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. And until next time, we will see you in the next one. Take care.